Hello, tubers. This is Pat Jordan flying my B12 bomber over you from the Grain Ghetto in Illinois. I now call food, supplements, and drugs chemical warfare agents. Some of the work that we do as the Little Red Hens is based on the old method of plodding along, turning over each rock as we come to it, examining the ooey gooey nastiness beneath, perhaps even licking the rock for sample, and then moving on. Other times, a red hen will just send a link at random, and it turns out to be that single thing that we all needed to know for survival on this shit heap. This is one of those times. The random bit. Sandwich Lady sent the link about diagnosis and treatment of B12 deficiency. I watched it 3 times. I couldn't believe my eyes or ears because I rarely agree with anyone in modern medicine, yet this ER nurse was unrefutable. The correlations with things like misdiagnosed MS, ALS, and other obvious conditions like essential tremor made me feel like a complete fool. But the fact of the matter is, I didn't know any of this until May of 2019. If you didn't know and were purposely fooled, then that makes those who did it evil criminals. You see, B12 deficiency is a cover-up at the highest levels because that way they can milk us like sick cows. Here's a quick overview on the enterohepatic circulation of vitamin B12. Cyanocobalamin is an industrial poison, therefore not a vitamin. Hydroxycobalamin is a useful intermediate only if your genes haven't been mangled by vaccines so that you can convert it to methylcobalamin that is also useful but can be a problem for those who overmethylate and or those whose genes have been mangled by vaccines who then can't change it into the active form of adenosylcobalamin. This form is available as a supplement, but I believe in full disclosure, so the only way that certain, quote, vitamins can be made is by GMO bugs in fermenter vats. This is why Joe Mercola could never get a labeling law passed, because even in alternative medicine, there's too many GMOs, baby. In the material below, I provide a link for a friend referral to Seeking Health that makes a bioidentical B12. It has silica in the mix, which, in the spirit of full disclosure, is being currently brought into question, but I don't know enough about the industrial silica chemistry to comment at this time. I will get, quote, rewards if you use the referral and follow the other link to either B12 or SOD superoxide dismutase, which I personally endorse. I have absolutely no ties to the company. I'm not an affiliate and I get no compensation other than a friend referral. Because I have no financial interest in suggesting supplements by brand, you might also find ecological formulas adenosylcobalamin in liquid form useful. I have no financial ties with the maker or Pure Formulas either. Their Refer a Friend program merely offers me a discount. If you have a problem with glycerin, then be aware of excipients whenever you decide to try a supplement. Nearly all manufacturers put something in their mix that either nullifies the benefits or actually makes you worse. When I saw the B12 deficiency video explain the situation, I knew what kind of danger we were in. The lie begins with the reference ranges for blood tests of B12 being at the low end of the spectrum, where you would begin to see things like pernicious anemia, that is a dread disease. Problem is that if you have macrocytic anemia, meaning giant red blood cells from B12 deficiency, at the same time that you have microcytic anemia from iron deficiency, it evens out the size of the cells so they look okay to the idiot that might use a microscope to look at your blood, but mostly they're just scanned with a laser and averaged. The crime intensifies in that the reference range for blood tests is below the level where you can have slow and sometimes permanent nerve damage to your peripheral or central nervous system. Early signs of damage to the brainstem is imbalance. Who do you know our age that doesn't have a balance problem? I fell and broke my hip. Typically is osteoporosis breaking the hip and then you fall. In the case of brain damage from demyelination due to B12 deficiency, you might just fall irregardless. I finished my 106th and 107th liver cleanses a couple months ago. I have been cleaning out my liver almost every 2 weeks for 4 years. I'm no idiot. Just ask me, I'll tell you. I knew 2 things. That I was purposely excreting the toxic bile so that it would not be reabsorbed. Therefore, I would at some point deplete the sludge bile that would hopefully be replaced by new, healthier bile. As a vegan, the only source of saturated fats to make cholesterol is coconut and palm oil. As a vegan, I knew that my B12 had to be supplemented, not only because of the vegan diet providing no source of B12, but because if my bile had any B12 in it, that it could never be recycled because the bile was all being flushed out of my system on purpose. So I was supplementing with hydroxycobalamin from a third manufacturer, not linked with the other stuff below, with nothing to report. It's quite possible that my genes are broken, so I can't convert the hydroxycobalamin to the active form. So I moved up to hydroxy mixed with adenosylcobalamin in liquid, just in case. But at the recommended levels of the liquid, I felt absolutely no results. That was all going on when I was studying ways to reverse prion disease because I was losing my memory. I had balance problems, was clumsy, knocking things over when reaching for another, and I had a host of nerve pains that only showed themselves after I realized we had all been fooled. The deficiency video says that it takes 1,000 micrograms, which is 1 milligram, of B12 to act therapeutically, orally. Since the liquid B12 was a 50-50 mix of hydroxy and adenosyl, I had to take 10 times the amount just to feel an effect. Imagine all the damage accrued all those years that I thought I was doing the right thing, but had been lied to by a malicious military medical system. Since I always experiment on myself like a guinea pat, I had experimented with taking B12 right after I did the 106th liver cleanse to see if it would give the liver a boost. It made me extremely ill. To this day, I can't explain it other than it might have somehow affected microbes that were either liberated due to the cleanse or were still embedded in my organs. H. pylori is one of the reasons why your stomach acid is low. High stomach acid is required to activate intrinsic factor that is required to shuttle B12 to where it needs to go. Think the controllers didn't know that? That's why they sell antacids over the counter. They know you will fall into neurological damage from B12 deficiency because you are treating your stomach for a false flag attack with antacids when you actually need more acid. Along with the B12 experiment for Cleanse 106, I had added a really high-powered anti-parasite herb that I hesitate to mention because I don't want anyone following in my footsteps, which is kind of funny because I claim that my work is more about mapping landmines rather than telling people what to do for health. Done blowed my guts out on 106 using male fern too close to the time when I still had oil in my system. Oil can amplify the toxic properties of male fern. This is not a parasite killer that you should use with limited knowledge. But I am the guinea pat, and I did make mistakes, yet I'm still here to tell you about them and have provided the map of the landmines. I waited a month and a half to attempt Liver Cleanse 107 because there was still inflammation in Mr. Liver and I wanted it out. It was a case of either the bug or I was going to die. 107 was devastating from the point of view that I felt the coagulated bile squeeze from the farthest reaches of both left and right biliary trees. But you don't get something for nothing. So I had squeezed that turnip dry like twisting a dish rag. I'm still recovering. I don't keep secrets from people that I try to help. I just try not to tell the AI too much. Oops. Too late on that one. What was the result of the squeeze dry? Well, except for the new problems, I felt okay. But I could tell that there was serious lymphatic congestion that needed to move. The synthesis of the rational gurus of our time is to kill parasites, clean the bowel, clean the liver, and only then can you clean the lymph. Believe me. I've already told this story on air, so the AI already knows that way before I started this madness, I heard about the maple syrup cleanse. I made some maple syrup with lemon juice and put a small amount of cayenne pepper in it because I wasn't quite sure how it was going to taste. It tasted great. And that wasn't the bad part. I only drank one glass. The bad part was that I had a blockage in a chest lymph node that services the heart. And I damn near thought I was going to damn near die. I applied a couple of therapies and the goddamn plug popped like some kind of internal pimple inside my lymphatic trunks. I didn't die, much to the disappointment of our enemies, and here I am telling you again, you might not want to step on that landmine. I brought it up before that the guy who came up with the maple syrup cleanse insisted that a fellow who was gravely ill keep doing the cleanse even though he was suffering. The cleanse ultimately killed the guy. We must use moderation, caution, and as much knowledge as we have. Do what I say and not what I do. I didn't know that your body could demyelinate nerves unless you had a shitload of B12 available. I didn't know that a maple syrup cleanse could cause so much hydrostatic pressure that it could pop a clot in the plumbing. I did know that the heart and other organs are served by lymph, and Patricia Jordan, the veterinarian, told me that some kidney problems are not from high blood pressure, but from lymphatic back pressure. This next part might confuse you, because I quote Hulda Clark and Andre Moritz, who said that if you are healthy, you can do a liver cleanse every 2 weeks. There might be the implied notion that I agree with everything that those two said. I don't. I did 107 cleanses, close to 2 weeks apart, for a total of 34,870 objects removed, ranging in size from smaller than a pinhead to filaments to 1 inch across. Andre had written about 2 men that were autopsied to find 30,000 and 80,000, quote, stones in their biliary systems. I never use the word stones because many people have bile sludge, not concretions. My goal was to pass 30,000 at the very least and not be autopsied. Mission accomplished. Like I said, the last two cleanses had side effects that I'm working through right now. My suffering will instruct those who come after me on how to avoid those mistakes. What none of us could have avoided with all good intent was to know that the medical military lied to us about B12 levels and its need. Andre was interviewed many times, and one of the topics was of B12, where he was a promoter of the meme that we get plenty of B12, we're just not absorbing it. Wrong out of the box. The absolute maximum that the body can extract, if it was abundant, and if there wasn't a fucking thing wrong with the host, is 20%. That means that you need 120 times the set amount just to float the difference. Andre said from the outset that the problem is the foods we are eating, which is partially a blame the patient game. He never once blamed the spirochete H. pylori. With nonsense like that, you should just turn off the video and walk away. I already explained the chemistry to you. B12 intake, stomach acid, and as the deficiency video showed, there are about 15 other proteins beyond intrinsic factor that you might have autoimmunity to, just to get the B12 through the intestinal walls. Only if you have functioning bile. What the hell was that man talking about? Moritz goes on to say that even ingested supplements won't work if you are missing intrinsic factor. But he, like all gurus, never takes it to the level of systemic infection impairing production of intrinsic factor, or even HCl, in the stomach, let alone autoantibodies to the stomach cells, or metabolic errors preventing production of said compounds, or mutated genes from vaccines preventing production, or autoimmunity from vaccines destroying the products as soon as they're made. This is why I'm offering the notion of getting sublingual bioidentical B12 as liquid or lozenges to be put under the tongue to bypass digestion altogether and prevent the scared animals from running to a white coat to get an injection. A B12, quote, shot alone is a vaccine that will cause autoimmunity to B12 so that now you will be forever enslaved to get shots. But shots of what? The white coat assassins might offer hydroxy or methylcobalamin if they're modern and hip. We already established cyanocobalamin as toxic, so it isn't even a vitamin. Yet the uniformed military and white coats offer cyanocobalamin as a shot for B12 deficiency. But if you get the other two kinds without the genetic ability to convert them to adenosylcobalamin, then you have really screwed the pooch. And the pooch ain't too happy. Moritz went on to promote the lie that bacteria produce enough B12 in the human gut for the host to remain replete in the vitamin. This is just utter bullshit. Yet even if it wasn't, then he is ignorant or covering up the fact that there are other bacteria that eat B12 like a snack as soon as it is made. So even if you were to have a swimming pool full of B12 in your gut, the hitchhikers would make it disappear instantly. That is why I use bioidentical sublingual, because if you took pills and they got to your guts and you were overrun by B12 eaters, you would be out of money and your brain would start to melt. Thus, you wouldn't be able to wonder why Moritz was such a dickhead over something so simple. If bugs eat it as soon as it arrives and you lack stomach acid and you have autoimmunity to 15 shuttle proteins and your bile is Elmer's glue left out for a couple hours in the squeeze bottle tip, then you're pretty much fucked straight to hell with an asbestos condom. Moritz talked about the B12 being recycled in the enterohepatic system and stored in the liver for 6 years, but you really fucking need to read that obstacle course I just described again, because with all of those barriers to reabsorption, there is no doubt to why even a meat eater could be paralyzed and in adult diapers. We're not even talking stickmen we're not even talking about me who did liver cleanses for 4 years. The enterohepatic circulation of B12 article was a lifesaver to protect me from idiots like Moritz and others, because it showed me that I must supplement, whether I wanted to or not. But it didn't take me as far as the deficiency video. The video depicted meat eaters who, for whatever reason, became deficient and almost fucking died. When you consider that it is as simple as getting laughing gas at the dentist to destroy your B12, then my title for this video comes full circle to chemical warfare agents, no matter where they're found. I also find Moritz's view on cancer to be flawed, and I hate anyone who says that you only need to think happy thoughts and your problems will go away. Bullshit! 2.5 years into my cleanses, I spontaneously smiled for no reason. My liver was finally getting better, and it told me so. People don't listen to their bodies. That's why they're fucked up. No one listened to Candace Pert, who said, the body. Can I do that again? The body is the unconscious mind. They warp that revelation to fit some new age vomit when she was saying that your body informs your moods and mental health, not the fucking Yehudi trap of the other way around. Study all of my material on somatopsycho rather than psychosomatic, and you will know why I reject and hate anyone that talks about what is nothing but self-hypnosis. By 3 years into the liver cleanses, I was no longer being poisoned by my own toxic bile. But think about that, folks. Decades of industrial farm chemicals and industrial toxins that took 3 years to purge from the recesses of my liver. But then I was starting to get a new illness that I identified as parasites waking up from their sequestered positions in the farthest reaches of my liver. So they were trying to take over new territory. Full 18-day parasite cleanses kicked their asses, so I kept going. That's one of the greatest gifts that I can give. It answers why idiots can adopt special diets or take special and often expensive supplements to get relief from something like candida. But if they fall off the diet or run out of money for the pills, the monsters come back with a vengeance. That's because they never went away. They were sequestered in the biliary tree and the lymph, so until and unless you chase them out of the ghetto, there will never be any urban renewal, because there will always be old seed waiting in the wings to fill in where their earlier brothers failed. You can dust rose petals at my feet and offer me your virgin daughters, because you won't find that kind of analysis and insight from personal experience from me anywhere. This is why I hold the guru sphere in derision. Hate them. Hated them. Their limp serotonin deprived, self hypnotized, self aggrandized apes that allow their mindless followers to do a few liver cleanses a year and then declare them healthy, as long as they cough up the dough for the palliative supplements. Within the 4 years of cleansing, I had about a month where I was damn near totally healthy. I could eat oil with lecithin with impunity and never get a fungal rash, which told me that the vegans and others who demonize oil don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. Oil isn't the enemy. In fact, lack of oil and fat to stimulate the liver and gallbladder are the enemy. The fungal rashes resurfaced only after subsequent cleanses pulled the fungus and parasites from their protected spaces in the bile ducts. I say fungus, not yeast or candida, that gets way too much attention because I've been around the world from tropical rainforests to grain bins in the Grain Ghetto. So we are all exposed to fungi that are legion. As I said, it appears that I squeezed my liver dry. Not an ideal condition, but it is the end of the line, where the next phase is to clean the lymph so that this recurring cycle of microbes that come out of sequestration can be stopped forever. Not palliated, not put at bay, not pacified. Eliminated from existence. You may or may not be aware that your lymph can gel like a pickle due to aluminum. You may not be aware that you can literally have stones in your lymph. You may not be aware that my physiology book had about 2 pages on the lymph system, when to me it's the most important part of the body. The ancient Gong Fu monks thought so too. It makes you wonder how a bunch of untechnical shaved heads knew that lymph transports oxygen, fat, and protein. It makes you wonder why a shaved head like me knows more about the human body than those who have over 1 million followers of their brand of bullshit. Cheers! And they all clinked their glasses together and drank a half a cup of olive oil.